Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. This is Craig at Hiking Pipes. That's the channel's name, and in accordance with that channel name, I am smoking a pipe, which is one of my hobbies. I am smoking what is known as a Rhodia pipe. Specifically, it's a rind apple, straight shape. In it, I'm smoking a tobacco from a company called Esoterica, and the blend is Dorchester. Esoterica is it's almost one of what the pipe community would call a unicorn blend because it's very, very difficult to get. They only drop the tobaccos out every so often over the course of a year. So when it does happen, everybody in the pipe community goes nuts trying to get it, and sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. I got lucky, and I was able to pick up some of this unicorn blend. But that's not what this video is about. This video is going to go into more of the world of fountain pens, okay? And so this will be my second video talking about fountain pens a little bit. So with that, I'm going to take my pipe. I'm going to put that off to the side, as that is not going to be the focus of this. So fountain pens, people will pick up a fountain pen maybe and not have a great experience, or have a great experience. Most of the time at the beginning, it's not a very good experience. And fountain pens are a lot trickier than ballpoint pens or rollerball pens. They require more maintenance, a little bit more technique in the use of them. But once you get that, they're so much more enjoyable to write with. And if you're a writer, having the experience of writing with a fountain pen is just, it's a pleasure. And the reason for me adopting the hobby of fountain pens is that was one of the things I took on a couple years back to sort of as a cathartic activity to get my thoughts on paper. And again, it just is kind of an escape for me, along with the pipe smoking, to kind of get into my own world. And I really enjoy that. But one of the reasons that folks, other than the nuances of using the fountain pen itself that come into play, is your choice of paper. And folks don't always, especially new writers, will not give that a consideration of the type of paper, and they will, grab a notebook paper or maybe some like copy machine type paper, and when they're using the pens, it doesn't give them a rewarding experience, and it's attributable to the paper a lot of the time. So what I have here, and I'm going to try to show this, is paper. I have 7 different types of paper here that I kind of pre-scribbled on, and will show some differences as to how paper can make a difference in the writing experience. The way I approached this is I used 2 pens in my collection. I used a Leonardo Momento Zero. This pen has, if I can show this a bit, I get to focus a little bit, hopefully. You can see this actually has a fine nib. And then as a comparative, I also used a Monteverdi pen. The reason is that it's the only pen I have that is my widest nib, which is a 1.1 stub nib. So I picked my widest nib and a fine nib to kind of show the variation on how inks behave on paper. I also chose 3 different inks, and I inked each one of these pens, cleaning them out in between, of course, prior to using them. The 3 inks I chose 3 different types of ink. First, and they're all very well behaved. the first is kind of a really a nice blue ink. This is the Irizukazan Konpeki, if I can get that out of my mouth. It's a high quality ink. Flows really, really nice. Doesn't have really much, other properties like sheening or shading. Typically, that's not what this ink is used for. The second ink I chose was a Robert Oster ink, Frankly Blue. This one has some excellent shading properties. So you'll be able to see how, again, the two pens on different paper, the shading properties, how that comes out. And then I chose, as a third ink, Organic Studios Walden. This ink is a favorite of mine. It has some incredible sheening properties to it. And again, we'll see how the two nibs on different paper kind of show that sheening properties. So with that, I'm going to take a pause, flip the camera around, and hopefully what I've done and the way I'm going to present this will help folks understand that the selection of paper in the type of ink that you're using will have a significant or a different impact on the writing. And again, this is one of the reasons why the world of fountain pens is a never-ending rabbit hole, because you have so many different types of inks, colors, of course, and you have different types of pens with nibs. You have these, gold nibs and flex nibs and stub nibs and fine nibs and so forth. And then you put them onto different types of paper. Like I said, I have 7 papers here. This is not all the papers that are out there. These are just the papers that I have currently that I write on. So you figure out all those combinations and permutations of inks, nibs, papers, and you could see just with the 3, the 2, and the 7, if you did all the math, and I haven't done that in preparation for this, but you could see just that combination and the permutations give you a tremendous amount of variation on how your writing experience will be. So stay tuned. I'm going to kind of lay things out and walk through and show some examples. Hopefully it's going to come out clear, and we'll give folks a visual on how inks and paper and nibs kind of behave with each other. So stay tuned. Be right back. Okay, so we're back, and I laid out all of these different notebooks, papers, and you can kind of see I've got all 7 of them laid out here. And again, what I had done is with each pen, with each ink, I did a little quote writing, and also did a little bit of ink splotching with each color. The way I did the ink splotching was I simply took a Q-tip swab, dipped it into the ink, and with one pass, swatched onto the papers. So again, the idea is to hopefully show the different properties of these inks and how they show up on different papers, and what the pluses, minuses, downfalls of using some of these papers may be. So that being said, I'm going to kind of move the camera in a little bit closer here. I'm going to kind of put off of, the books off to the side here, paper off to the side, and we'll take it kind of one by one in what we'll do. So with that, just give me a moment. Okay, so the first paper I'll bring up is kind of a common paper, and that is Moleskin. And there are different types of Moleskins out there, but this is what I have. It's a Moleskin book. Not the best for fountain pens, when we'll kind of take a look as to why. So what we can see on the Moleskin is the first three writings are with the stub nib, which again is the wider nib, and then the bottom three are with the fine nib. And what the Moleskin is, it's a very absorbent paper. So when you're writing with the ink is kind of really absorbing into this particular paper. What you can still make out, and I'm going to try to play some tilting games here, especially in the fine nib with the Leonardo, is you can definitely see it. You are getting some sheening, which is very nice. In the swatches, you can also see with the Organic Studios Walden, you're getting good sheening there. The Robert Oster Frankly Blue is kind of grainy looking, as well as the Konpeki is also kind of grainy looking. But you can also see with the Moleskin, you get what they call feathering, and that is your lines are not crisp. Because of the absorbency of the paper, you're getting kind of almost a fuzzy-ish type of appearance, and that's really evident, like in here. You could see with the M, you could see that fuzzy outlining. So, again, I wouldn't recommend this particular Moleskin, at least for the use of fountain pens. The other thing about the Moleskin is that because it is so absorbent, you get a significant amount of bleed through. So on the back side of the page, you can see that we definitely have some bleed through. So you really couldn't use both sides of the page for with the fountain pens. So anyway, that's the Moleskin. The next one I'll bring in is ARC paper. This is my daily driver for work. I have an ARC notebook, and I tend to write with a very fine nib for work. So I'm not laying down a lot of ink, but you can see with the ARC paper, the ink is rather unremarkable. Even tilting the Organic Studios Walden, you're not really seeing any sheening. The Konpeki Blue is very nice, but again, unremarkable. You're really not getting too much feathering on here. It's just, like I said, it's an okay paper, and like I said, I use it for work notes and things of that nature. The good thing is that although there's a little bit of ghosting on it, it's usually from the heavier inks, and again, I use a fine nib pen, I don't get any bleed through or ghosting, so I can use both sides of the paper. But again, this is ARC paper. The next paper I will bring in is a staple, and this is Rhodia. This is one of the three staples in the fountain pen world, and I use this Rhodia Pad for longer writings. Sometimes I'll write poetry or some song lyrics, or if I just want to do a long writing session, like I say, to get into my own little world. And Rhodia offers some good properties. You can see, especially here, the sheening in the Organic Studios Walden is really nice. The Konpeki has a nice rich blue to it, and the Robert Oster Frankly Blue, a little bit unremarkable. You're not really seeing any significant shading or what have you, but the ink in the writings is still nice and crisp. You're not getting any feathering, and like I said, it's a good paper for general purpose writing. On the back side, you can see there's no ghosting, no bleed through. So again, good paper for fountain pen use. Okay, moving on. I have a less commonly used paper, and that is black and red. This book I use as I've been using as a weight loss journal. Every day I will log, what I eat and, what my weight is. So I've been on this weight program. But I've been really surprised by this. I picked this up on a whim, and you can see, especially with the Organic Studios, that's some really incredible sheen. It almost gets reflection with the light. There's no real feathering going on. It's really funny with the splotches with the Walden. It doesn't really show the sheening, but boy, when you're writing, and again, this is the fine nib down here, this is the stub nib up here. You can see really nice sheening with it. The blue is nice and rich on the Konpeki, and the Robert Oster, you're getting into a little. It does show off a little bit of the shading properties that ink does contain. Again, this paper, does not ghost and does not have any bleed through. So, again, a pretty good paper. Once again, red and black, not bad at all. The next paper I'll talk about is Clairefontaine. Get this little bookmarky thing out of the way. Clairefontaine is, again, one of the three staples, along with Rhodia and the next papers I'll talk about. Clairefontaine is excellent writing paper. This is my daily journal I go through, so I'm using this paper probably the most. And again, as you can see, the Organic Studios Walden is sheening up beautifully on this. The Robert Oster, again, you're getting some of that shading properties. And the Konpeki is showing some really, rich coloration. Very good. And there's really no feathering to speak of with utilization of this Clairefontaine paper. No ghosting, no bleed through, even on the splotches. So again, this is Clairefontaine. Really nice paper to write on. The next paper is going to be the third in a staple, and that's called Tomalway River. Tomalway River comes in a couple of different weights. This is the 68 GSM weight paper, and Tomalway River is really known for highlighting the properties of ink. It brings out the really finer aspects, and you can already see just by me holding it here, you can see how much red sheening is in that splotch, and with the writing, it's just remarkable how really this paper brings out some wonderful properties. The interesting thing is that the Robert Oster Frankly Blue, looks a little bit unremarkable. This is kind of supposed to be a nice shading ink, and you can pick up a little bit of the shading. Bring it up here. Around here, you can see some variation in the depth of color. So it adds some interest there. Also up in the R, you got some shading in there as well. The Konpeki is a nice, deep, rich blue. And again, this is really wonderful paper to write on. The 68 weight paper, again, there's no bleed through. Ever so minor ghosting, but definitely you can utilize both sides of the paper for the 68 GSM weight. The other paper is also a Tomalway River, but it's the 53 GSM, which is a much finer, lighter paper. Again, the properties that the paper brings out of the ink are just beautiful. The Walden, again, you got this incredible sheen going on. The Konpeki looks a little more muted on this particular paper, but with the writing, it really, actually, the Konpeki is showing a little bit of shading aspects, which is really nice. And the Robert Oster Frankly Blue, again, you're getting some definite shading variations in your writing here. So the properties of the inks, as I said, the Robert Oster is for shading. The Organic Studios Walden is for sheening, and the Irazuku Konpeki is a good standard writing ink. And you can see how, again, the paper really highlights the ink's properties. The thing with the lighter GSM paper, you can see you definitely will get a little ghosting here. So for those that like to write on both front and back, you can, I don't know if it's the best paper. It's certainly usable because, again, it will not actually bleed through, but you will, again, you will see ghosting from the previous side. I'm going to remove this blotter. So, between the two, it's probably best to do it this way. The two Tomalway River papers, very, very similar in how they show off the ink. Again, both excellent papers. You compare that with, and I'm just going to use the this one here. Again, this is the Clairefontaine. You can see that the Tomalway River will again, I keep referencing the Organic Studios Walden because that's the one that's really kind of standing out. You could see the sheening properties on the Tomalway River are, definitely highlighted a little bit more. The other aspect of writing on certain papers, and I'm going to pull back into my everyday work paper, the ARC paper. When you're writing, how the part of the experience is how the pen is feeling, if you will, as you're writing, the feedback you're getting. And when you're writing on like a Tomalway River or a Rhodia or a Clairefontaine paper versus kind of a stock paper, even if it's of decent quality like this ARC, the way the pen moves over the paper, you will definitely see some significant difference in the feedback. When you start getting into the Moleskin type paper, and I'll bring that back in, again, this Moleskin has kind of a, because it's so absorbent, and has kind of I would say, I use the word rough, but it's a rougher texture versus a smoother texture. Like the Tomalway Rivers, the Rhodias, the Clairefontaines, they really have kind of, due to the processing, they almost have like a, lack of a better word, like a coating on it. And so when you're writing, the pen is gliding over the paper, whereas untreated paper like this Moleskin or copy machine paper or loose leaf type paper, when you're writing, you would almost, the paper itself, the nib will start taking up little fuzzies off the paper. You'll actually get an accumulation on some nibs, especially the finer nibs with paper. So, that's why paper is just so very important in the fountain pen experience and is really overlooked and not really thought of by especially new writers. So, with that, I'm going to kind of flip the camera up and turn it around a little bit, and we'll kind of talk about a little bit of a conclusion here. So here we go. And we'll flip her around. Hello, back again. And so I hope this video showed why paper is so very, very important to the utilization of fountain pens. The paper can make or break your experience and enjoyment with fountain pens. If somebody grabbed that Moleskin book and started just say, hey, I got paper and I'm going to start writing, and, you get these inks that have these incredible properties to them, and you don't see it happening, you start saying, yeah, why should I bother? But you select a good quality paper like a Rhodia, a Clairefontaine, Tomalway River, um, and you see the properties of the inks really shine. And that really enhances the fountain pen experience. So when getting a fountain pen, yes, you want to choose something that's aesthetically pleasing to you from a design point of view. You, depending on your writing style, how small or how big you write, you'd want to get a certain type of nib, whether it's a broad nib or an extra fine nib. And but you really need to choose your paper. And not choosing the right paper, again, I am redundant, I understand, won't lead you to a good experience. So I hope that this was helpful to folks out there. Again, welcome to the proverbial never-ending rabbit hole that is fountain pens, papers, inks, pens, nibs. Never ends. So with that, thanks for watching. And as always, I'm just going to ask everybody to please be safe, be well, be good to each other, and we'll catch you again real soon. Again, Craig at Hiking Pipes. Take care for now.